So, Lindsay, what is that preliminary assessment telling us?
So, Shahan, there's no denying that there has been significant structural damage to both the National Assembly in particular and also the old Assembly buildings. But the engineers saying that none of the structural damage, however severe it is in some parts, is a risk in terms of those buildings collapsing. The biggest concerns right now is that obviously both the roofs of both those buildings are non-existent, but there's a lot of debris, and they are concerned about that blowing off. As you know, Cape Town's quite a windy city, blowing off into the parliamentary precinct to the rear of those buildings, which are public gardens. And so the immediate concern is how they contain that debris, and also to construct a temporary roof structure on the old Assembly building to prevent any further damage from rain and other inclement weather. But we know that at least 5 floors, from the 2nd floor right up until the 6th floor of the National Assembly building, completely gutted. The National Assembly chamber completely razed. There is no roof left to that. What's really stalling a complete assessment at this time is all the water trapped in the basement and the lower floors of the National Assembly building. Thousands and thousands of litres of water, at one point reaching a height of 1.7 metres. And they're working round the clock throughout the week to try and pump all that water out of the basement via the city sewers so that they can complete those assessments. But here's Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille explaining where they are at in terms of the progress in assessing these buildings so far.
We are at an assessment stage, and the projected time for finalizing the 2nd phase of the assessment, Kuga has indicated that will be in early May. So we are not starting any restoration in early May. The 2nd phase of the report that Kuga will do for us is, one, they will then, in the 2nd phase, do the estimate. They will assess the extent of the damage. Then they will also assess the cost of the damage.
So what are the next steps, Lindsay?
So we hear today as well that the Hawks have now completed their investigation, and they have now handed the building back to the Department of Public Works. So that also allows them more access in terms of determining the extent of the structural damage and what it will cost to fix. We know these engineers have been appointed at a cost of almost R500,000, Shahan, to carry out these assessments. We also hear some political parties, of course, not wanting or thinking that these buildings should be repaired in any way. That's part of a broader debate about whether Parliament should move. But the Speaker of the National Assembly very clear today to say that is a completely separate debate that needs to be had, and premature to decide whether these buildings should be rebuilt, whether they should be demolished and built again from scratch. And so for now, the assessments will continue. The engineers saying that because there are a number of public holidays in April, it's going to take a little longer to complete an entire assessment, so that we know at the end of this exactly what all this damage is worth and what it might cost to repair all of it. And so, as you heard from Patricia de Lille there, an expected date in early May for the 2nd phase of these assessments to be complete. But here is the Speaker telling MPs not to get ahead of themselves just yet, and praising the engineers for the work that they've done so far.
At this point in time, the focus really is on the assessment of the damage caused by the fire. Issues of relocation of Parliament, if needs be, issues of either restoration or rebuilding of Parliament are issues which we can only start discussing as South Africans once we have had an understanding and picture of how much we can do with what is left out of the ruins of Parliament.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Lindsay Dentlinger is live for us in Cape Town.